The Story of the Three Brothers. Once upon a time, there was a king who owned a unique apple tree that bore golden apples. The gardener would count the apples every day and report the number to the king. One day, the gardener went to the king and said, "One apple is missing, your majesty." The king became furious upon hearing this and declared, "I will not let this thief get away." That evening, he instructed the gardener's eldest son to guard the apple tree. However, the boy fell asleep, and in the morning another apple was missing. The gardener then said, "I will assign my second son to watch the tree tonight." At midnight, the second son also fell asleep, and once again an apple disappeared by morning. The gardener's youngest son then offered to guard the tree and asked the king for permission. The king agreed. At exactly midnight, the youngest son heard the sound of a bird flying through the air. Suddenly, a bird with feathers of pure gold appeared. As it was about to take an apple in its beak, the youngest son jumped up and shot an arrow at the bird, but he missed. However, he managed to knock a golden feather from the bird's tail as it flew away. The gardener presented the feather to the king. The royal council convened and concluded that the feather was more valuable than all the kingdom's treasures. The king then declared, "One feather is not enough. I want the whole bird. Who has the courage to bring me the golden bird?" The gardener's eldest son volunteered for the mission. He set out in search of the golden bird and soon encountered a fox sitting in the middle of the road. The eldest son drew his bow and prepared to shoot. But the fox spoke, "Do not kill me, and I will give you good advice. I know you are on a mission to find the golden bird." The eldest son replied, "What advice do you have?" The fox said, "Listen carefully. Tonight you will reach a village with two inns. One is beautiful and lavish, while the other is shabby and cheap. You must spend the night in the poor inn." The eldest son thought to himself, "How could such an animal know anything about my mission?" So he shot an arrow at the fox, but he missed, and the fox ran into the forest. The eldest son continued his journey and eventually reached the village with the two inns. People were celebrating, singing, and dancing at the grand inn, while the other looked dirty and uninviting. The eldest son thought, "I would be foolish to choose the shabby inn," and went into the lavish one. He enjoyed eating and drinking so much that he forgot about the golden bird and his homeland. Time passed, and he never returned. So the second son set out on the same quest. He too encountered the fox, who gave him the same advice. But when he reached the inns, his older brother called out to him from the grand one, and he joined him, forgetting the bird and their homeland. After more time passed, the youngest son asked his father for permission to search for the bird. "Please, father," he said, "let me go." The father was afraid and replied, "I have already lost two sons." But the youngest son reassured him, "You won't lose me. Trust me." Finally, the gardener agreed. The youngest son entered the forest, met the fox, and listened carefully to the advice. The fox then said, "Climb onto my tail, and I will take you there quickly." The youngest son obeyed, and in no time they reached the village. He stayed in the shabby inn, as advised. In the morning the fox returned and gave him another piece of advice. "Now, continue until you reach a castle guarded by soldiers asleep at their posts. Ignore them and enter the castle. Inside you will find a room with a golden bird in a wooden cage next to a magnificent golden cage. Do not switch the cages or you will regret it." The youngest son thanked the fox and promised to heed his words. He entered the castle, found the bird as described, but thought it would be foolish to take the bird in this ugly cage. As soon as he tried to switch to the golden cage, the bird cried out, waking the guards who captured him. The next morning he was sentenced to death. He pleaded with the king for mercy, and the king said, "I will spare your life if you bring me the golden horse that outruns the wind." The youngest son set off again and met the fox, who scolded him for not listening. "But," the fox said, "because you have a good heart, I will help you. Continue to a castle where the horse stands in a stable. Take the horse, but put the old leather saddle on it, not the golden one." When the youngest son saw the horse, he thought, "This horse deserves the golden saddle." But as soon as he lifted the golden saddle, the horse neighed loudly, waking the stable hands who seized him. Once more he was sentenced to death. He begged for mercy, and the king of that land said, "Bring me the beautiful princess, and I will spare you and give you both the horse and the bird." The youngest son set off again, met the fox, and received another scolding. The fox said, "If only you had listened, but I will help you one more time. Go to the castle, find the princess in her chamber, and kiss her at midnight. She will agree to come with you, but do not let her say goodbye to her parents." The youngest son followed these instructions, but allowed the princess to bid farewell to her father. He was captured and told he would only be released if he could level a hill blocking the king's view in 8 days. The hill was enormous, but on the 7th day the fox appeared and said, "Rest, and I will take care of it." By morning the hill was gone, and the king joyfully gave his daughter to the young man. They left, and the fox gave one final piece of advice. "You can have everything, the princess, the horse, and the bird. Here's how. Present the princess to the king, who will give you the horse. When you shake hands, take the princess and escape. Then, at the next castle, trade the horse for the bird, but keep hold of both and flee." The youngest son followed the plan perfectly. Grateful, he said, "Thank you, dear friend. I owe you everything." The fox replied, "If you truly wish to repay me, end my life." The youngest son was shocked. "I could never do that." The fox warned him, "Beware of 2 things. Don't free anyone from the gallows, and never sit by the river." The young man traveled with the princess, the horse, and the bird. He reached a village where he saw 2 men about to be hanged. They were his brothers. Despite the warning, he paid to free them. Continuing on, the brothers suggested resting by the river. Forgetting the fox's warning, the youngest son agreed, and his brothers threw him into the water. The brothers took the princess, horse, and bird back to their king, claiming credit. However, the horse refused to eat, the bird wouldn't sing, and the princess wept constantly. Meanwhile, the youngest son, who had landed on a dry patch in the river, struggled until the fox saved him again. Disguised as a beggar, he went to the king's palace. As soon as he arrived, the horse ate, the bird sang, and the princess smiled. The youngest son revealed the truth, and the king punished his deceitful brothers. The kingdom was eventually inherited by the youngest son after the king's passing. One day he met the fox again. The fox tearfully begged him to fulfill his final wish. With a heavy heart the young man complied, and the fox transformed into the princess's long-lost brother, breaking an old curse.